Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are diving into a truly fascinating, completely raw primary source document called the Campus House Protocols and Staffing Disputes. It gives us this incredibly detailed window into a highly structured care environment, and honestly, the intense friction that happens when strict rules are broken. We're going to deconstruct the internal logic, the interpersonal conflicts, and the deep underlying need for predictability that drives this whole narrative.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The staffing dispute, 2. The campus house protocols, 3. The copycat days, 4. Witnesses and stakeholders, and 5. Anxiety and routine. Let's get right into it.
Kicking things off with Part 1, the staffing dispute and the 16-minute delay.
The document throws us right into the deep end with this incredible opening line. I did have to make Joan wait 16 minutes because I don't do early meds around London lonely members who disobey rules. Boom. Right away, we get this intense, unyielding tone. The narrator feels completely, absolutely justified in their retaliation, delaying their medication routine by exactly 16 minutes, all because a rule was broken by the staff member.
Now, you might be wondering, what on earth is a London lonely member? Well, this is where it gets super interesting. It's not some official corporate job title, no way. It's a custom-invented label the narrator uses for a staff member, Joan in this case, who decides to work an unauthorized shift alone, bypasses other people, and ultimately disobeys the house rules. By using this highly specific jargon, the narrator is basically putting Joan in a very clear, definitive box for violating the structure of their environment.
You can literally feel the real-time clash happening here. On one side, you've got the narrator strictly sticking to their internal rules, enforcing that going downstairs with their doll Princess Strawberry Shortcake, taking their pill, asking for their glycol powder, and pointedly calling Joan Miss London Lonely Member. And on the flip side, you've Joan's immediate professional reaction. Don't use those words on staff. It is a fundamental collision, you know? A resident's rigid internal logic crashing right into a staff member's enforcement of professional boundaries.
Moving right along to Part 2, Campus House Protocols and the Rules of the Environment.
So, just how rigid are these rules? Well, a single staffing hiccup literally cascades into an absolute shutdown of daily life. According to the narrator's protocol, if there's only one staff member on duty, that automatically means denying snack, supper, and meds, period. The text lays it out clear as day. Only overnight staff are permitted to work alone at night. Evening staff are explicitly forbidden from flying solo. And get this, if notifications about supper are even slightly delayed, the narrator declares that supper is definitively canceled. The whole shebang just shut down.
Which brings us to Part 3, the copycat days, a timeline of stress. The author actually keeps a meticulous record of what they call these copycat days. We're talking late May through mid-June, specifically May 25th, May 29th, June 5th, 6th, and 19th. These aren't just random dates jotted down. To the narrator, this represents a sustained period of immense stress. Week after week, these repeated, unauthorized shifts are just compounding the friction and stressing everyone out in the house. And because of all that built-up stress from those specific dates, the narrator strictly calculates their next move. They state definitively that starting tomorrow, they're going to escalate the consequence. They will make Joan wait an hour, exactly 60 minutes. It's not a random punishment thrown out in anger, right? It's a highly calculated, proportional response to those repeated copycat days of unauthorized solo shifts that completely threw off the house's equilibrium.
Let's look at who else is affected in Part 4, witnesses and stakeholders, the ecosystem.
This document reveals a massive, deeply populated ecosystem. We see a huge list of human staff, teachers, and housemates. But here's the absolute kicker. Treated with the exact same weight and importance are the narrator's dolls, Princess Leaf Brittany, Princess Strawberry Shortcake, and several others. It's truly fascinating. Humans and cherished items are categorized side by side as equal stakeholders in the harmony of the house.
We really need to pause on this one specific line from the text. Especially my dolls had enough of Joan choosing to work unauthorized shifts at Campus House. In the narrator's reality, these dolls aren't just inanimate objects sitting on a shelf. They are active stakeholders. They are experiencing the exact same distress as the human housemates and the other staff. The harmony of this environment is so vital that a disruption is felt by every single entity the narrator relies upon for comfort and stability.
And that leads us to our final section,
Part 5.
anxiety and routine, the core issue.
This right here? This is the key that unlocks the whole document. Working on authorized shifts near our diagnosed anxiety disorders, especially when it comes to having less staff members, this proves we aren't just talking about a petty grievance over a 16-minute wait for medication. We are talking about the profound destabilization that unpredictability causes for someone living with an anxiety disorder. For the narrator, having fewer staff than expected or having them work off-schedule shifts is a literal threat to their sense of safety and their carefully managed daily equilibrium. Actually, think about it. All those strict rules and calculated wait times, they're coping mechanisms. They are designed to regain control in an environment that suddenly feels terrifyingly unpredictable.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. How does absolute predictability shape the feeling of safety for those with anxiety? What might look to an outsider like a wild overreaction to a minor scheduling quirk is in fact a desperate defense of the routine necessary just to function. I hope deconstructing this incredibly complex, deeply human document gave you a fresh perspective today. Thank you so much for learning with me, and keep asking questions.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're taking a completely deadpan, forensic approach to what is, frankly, a highly complex, single-sentence operational manifesto. On the surface, this might just seem like a rapid-fire list of grievances, but as we're going to see, it's actually this deeply intricate blueprint of facility governance, strict conditional logic, and a highly regulated internal economy. Seriously, if you've ever had to deal with extreme workplace micromanagement, you are going to find this breakdown of a bizarre microsociety absolutely riveting.
Just to start us off, I want to show you exactly how dense our source text really is. We have had enough of Joan working unauthorized Friday shifts and Jennifer's 7 Sundays. This single, breathless sentence outlines sweeping policy changes, drastic shifts in daily operations, and severe economic penalties. It's kind of wild. So we're going to break down this chaotic stream of consciousness into a perfectly logical corporate structure. We aren't just reading it, we're mapping it out, identifying the key stakeholders, and seeing exactly how one unauthorized action triggers an entire cascade of systemic consequences.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll kick things off with the unauthorized shift epidemic, then move into the LM Notebook warnings. From there, we'll hit the supper protocol and takeover, check out the medication schedule adjustments, and finally, wrap up with the strawberry shortcake economy.
Okay, Section 1. The unauthorized shift epidemic, mapping the root cause.
Now, these are the exact contrasting infractions that kicked off this whole operational overhaul. On one side, we've got Joan's 4 unauthorized Fridays, and on the other, Jennifer R's staggering streak of 7 unauthorized Sundays. The tracking system here is literally meticulous. We're talking specific days of the week and exact infraction counts, acting as the catalyst that pushed this entire system to its breaking point.
Moving on to Section 2, the LM Notebook warnings, previous escalations.
To really understand the hierarchy of this organization, we have to categorize the entities involved. First up, we have the original warning issuers. These are the LM Notebook video creators, TJ, Casey, JT, SD, and AF. This group basically acted as the initial legislative body, creating video documentation stating they had enough of these unauthorized shifts. But when those warnings fail, well, power transfers directly to the executive enforcement branch, known as the Princesses. This branch consists of Leaf Brittany, Sophia, Chelly, Strawberry Shortcake, Bianca, and Rosalina. It's a fascinating separation of powers. The creators warn, but the princesses enforce. And the second they step in, the operational norms of the entire facility change immediately.
Which brings us to Section 3, Supper Protocol and Takeover, Operational Fallout.
The system essentially triggers this flawless 4-step algorithmic response to any disruption. Let's look at the flow. If supper notifications are delayed, that's step 1, a strict protocol kicks in. Step 2 mandates that supper is, quote, for sure canceled, but it doesn't stop there. Step 3 introduces a massive power shift, where the housemates forcibly take over the cooking. Finally, in Step 4, the original staff are relegated to merely watching the housemates make and serve the food. Their only remaining duty? Just to notify the housemates that supper's ready. It is a complete and total inversion of the traditional caretaker-resident dynamic, triggered automatically by the system's strict rules.
Next up, Section 4, Medication Schedule Adjustments, the Domino Effect.
So, after supper is confirmed canceled and the housemaid takeover is complete, the schedule mandates a highly specific, totally non-negotiable adjustment.
Meds will update exactly to 7:50 p.m. The source material is incredibly precise about this, making sure to clarify that this is exactly 10 minutes to 8 p.m. Actually, this isn't just some rough estimate, it is a rigid contingency plan. The delay in supper notifications creates this domino effect that reaches all the way to healthcare administration. It ensures that even when the kitchen is in total upheaval, the medical schedule locks into a newly calculated, hyper-specific time slot.
And finally, Section 5, the strawberry shortcake economy, the ultimate penalty.
I want you to just consider this astronomical figure for a second. 288,839,712. This is the starting balance of the total strawberry shortcake points. It represents a truly staggering accumulation of internal economic value. But because of Joan's 4 Fridays and Jennifer R's 7 Sundays, this massive fortune is now at severe risk. The manifesto dictates that the infractions must be calculated against these points, and that leads us to one of the most precise financial penalties we have ever documented in an explainer. The final math reveals the exact economic consequence, and honestly, it is a marvel of punitive precision. The trigger is Jennifer R's 7 Sunday streak. The enforcers called in for this specific economic strike are a specialized subset of the princesses: Strawberry Shortcake, Rosalina, Bianca, and Sophia. And their mandate? To deduct exactly 712 points from that massive starting balance. This surgical strike drops Jennifer R's total from 288,839,712 down to a perfectly round $288,839,000. It's a calculated leveling, a pure demonstration of absolute authority over the strawberry shortcake economy just to ensure compliance.
So, we've seen the warnings, the operational takeover, the scheduling domino effect, and the surgical point deductions. But I want to leave you with this to consider. If these cascading consequences continue, what is the ultimate operational fallout when that massive point balance finally hits zero? What does a total economic collapse actually look like in this facility? Thank you so much for joining me to decode this incredible manifesto today, and I'll let you ponder that final question.
Welcome back to another explainer. Let's dive straight into a wild and honestly pretty intense case study today. We're looking at exactly what happens when rigid bureaucratic rules absolutely crash into severe staffing shortages inside a residential care facility. We'll be breaking down first-hand accounts and internal rules from a place called Campus House. It's a really fascinating look at how top-level administrative failures trickle all the way down, affecting the most vulnerable people on a deeply personal, day-to-day level.
Right off the bat, I want to share a striking quote from a resident there. It instantly drops us into a tense, highly specific standoff. They said, "I did have to make Joan wait 16 minutes because I don't do early meds around London Lonely members who disobey rules." Now think about the conflict dripping from that statement. You've got a resident intentionally holding up their own medical routine, literally delaying taking their meds, just to penalize a staff member named Joan. This isn't just a random outburst, you know? It's a targeted protest pointing to a massive institutional breakdown right beneath the surface.
So, Part 1, a tense standoff.
To figure out why a resident is putting their own health on the line to make a point, we really need to unpack the power dynamics and decode this incredibly vivid language. London Lonely members. According to our sources, this is a highly specific label the resident invented. They use it to describe staff members who are working unauthorized solo shifts. So if a staff member bypasses the facility's rules and works alone, boom, they're a London Lonely member. It just shows how hyper-aware these residents are of the staffing schedules and the exact second those administrative rules are being broken.
And this next detail really highlights the residents' vulnerability during these rule-breaking shifts. During this whole 16-minute standoff with Joan, which was over taking a pill and a glass of glycol powder, the resident wasn't totally alone. They relied on a deeply personal support system, their dolls. They specifically name them as princesses. We're talking Princess Leaf Brittany, Princess Strawberry Shortcake, Princess Shaylee, Princess Rosalina, Princess Bianca, and Princess Sophia. The resident actually mentions bringing Princess Strawberry Shortcake downstairs just to get their meds. These dolls are clearly providing absolutely essential comfort and solidarity during these high-stress encounters.
Moving on to Part 2, the One Staff Protocol. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the actual bureaucratic rules that triggered this whole thing. Why is working alone such a huge deal? Well, the answer is right in the facility's own strict guidelines. At Campus House, evening staff are strictly forbidden from working alone, period. No exceptions. But
overnight staff, they are explicitly authorized to work solitary night hours. So the core grievance here makes total sense now. Joan is an evening staff member. The resident is incredibly distressed because Joan is allegedly violating those safety rules by working an unauthorized solo shift while on the clock in the evening.
And get this, the resident knows exactly who holds the staff accountable. They went ahead and meticulously generated a whole list of stakeholders to prove their point. It includes teachers like Chad, various staff members, and external figures, people like Jennifer R., Katie Ellis, Shelley Williams, and a few others. The resident lists them all out, stating point-blank that these folks would not be happy to learn Joan is choosing to work unauthorized shifts around the clients. It really shows the resident isn't just venting. They have a rock-solid understanding of the facility's oversight structure and exactly who enforces the rules.
Which brings us to part 3, denial of essential needs.
Okay, so we know Joan working alone violates the evening protocol, but what are the actual real-world consequences of these staffing shortages? Well, the crucial point comes down to a single number, 1. When the staffing level at Campus House drops to just one person, what the sources call the one-staff scenario, a really severe automatic institutional protocol kicks in.
And the consequences of hitting that number are honestly pretty drastic. The sources reveal a staggering cascade of denial. Under the one-staff protocol, residents are automatically denied their medications, they're denied their snacks, and they're even denied their supper. Just let the gravity of that sink in for a moment. Simply because the facility fails to provide more than one staff member, these residents entirely lose access to their basic human needs, their medicine and their food.
To make matters worse, the bureaucracy here is incredibly inflexible. According to the sources, if notifications about supper are simply delayed, the entire meal is officially canceled for the residents. Can you imagine? You have individuals facing the very real prospect of going to bed hungry. Not because there isn't any food in the building, but purely because of administrative delays and understaffing. It's wild.
Part 4, the anxiety factor.
We really have to ask ourselves how these sudden denials affect the actual people living at Campus House. Well, when we look at the 5 remaining housemates, TJ, JT, KC, SD, and AF, they all share one critical unifying trait. Every single one of them is diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Think about that combination. You take individuals whose medical conditions make them highly susceptible to stress, and you put them in an environment where their meals and medications can just suddenly vanish because of unpredictable staffing shortages. That kind of environmental instability is incredibly damaging.
And the residents are acutely aware of this hazard. They explicitly state they have had enough of Joan working unauthorized shifts near our diagnosed anxiety disorders, especially when it comes to having less staff members. This perfectly illustrates how understaffing is way more than just a scheduling headache for upper management. It directly exacerbates the residents' medical conditions. It frames their frustration not as, just bad behavior, but as a completely valid, medically grounded response to immense systemic stress.
Plus, this isn't just some isolated, one-off incident. The resident carefully documented a timeline of what they call the copycat days of stress. Just look at these dates: Monday, May 25th, Friday, May 29th, Friday, June 5th, Saturday, June 6th, and Friday, June 19th. By tracking this, the resident is highlighting the chronic, repetitive nature of this tension. This wasn't one bad shift, it was weeks of sustained, anxiety-inducing instability where rules are constantly broken and essential services are always at risk.
Finally, Part 5, escalating the retaliation.
So when people are stripped of their basic needs in stability, how do they react? Well, they turn the only thing they can control into a tool of protest. Remember that number from the very beginning of this explainer? 16. The resident initially forced the staff member Joan to wait exactly 16 minutes to administer medication. It was a direct, highly calculated penalty for Joan's decision to work an unauthorized solo shift. Basically, the resident was using their own medical compliance as leverage against the staff member's non-compliance.
But the tension is escalating rapidly. Because of those ongoing copycat days of stress, the resident issues a really stark warning. Starting tomorrow, they are going to escalate to 60. If supper is canceled again, they will literally make Joan wait a full hour, 60 minutes, just to administer medication. The resident is actively escalating their retaliation to match the severity of the administration's failures. It's a full-blown standoff. Which brings us to the crucial question you really should take away from this explainer today. When care protocols actually mandate the denial of essential needs like food and medication just because of staffing shortages, who truly pays the price?
As we've seen, looking at the reality of Campus House, it's certainly not the administrators who wrote the rules. It's the highly vulnerable individuals battling anxiety disorders and clutching their dolls for comfort who bear the heavy human cost of rigid institutional rules and systemic understaffing. It's a pretty profound look at the friction between policy and actual human care. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope this deep dive has given you a clearer understanding of the hidden realities inside these facilities.